welcome along to the Purple Golf Academy. We're doing lessons on our site at the moment for £20, so if you want to get your game sharpened up for the new season, then pop along and visit us at purplegolf.com and we'd love to help you out. Today we're going to take a look at the swing of Alvaro Quiros, the guy who won last weekend at Dubai, and one of the most exciting young players out there at the moment. Take a look at his action today and we'll see just why he's so exciting to watch and one of the longest hitters out there. He's about 6'5", this guy, really long arms, powerful legs, and he just cracks the whip with that driver. He's up there with Dustin Johnson and Tiger and some of those other guys who are Bubba Watson, who are hitting it out there well over 300 yards, and he's a pretty good model for how to hit the ball a long way. See him hitting his driver here at full speed, and you really get that sense that he's cracking that whip, loading it up, and firing that right side all the way through the impact zone. So from this face angle, let's have a little bit of a closer look at Quiros and see what makes him such a long hitter and so powerful. So in his takeaway here, from a really solid setup there, big wide stance, loaded into the ground, and into his takeaway he keeps his arms very long there, which means he gets lots of width. There's no sense that he's really shortening the radius in his arms at all. And at this stage, not a huge amount of wrist set either. It's an excellent turn into his right side from Quiros. Really winds up that upper body, and there's a real sense that he's using the ground in his backswing here. He's definitely not light on his feet there. At the top of the swing here, real Quiros trademark, the really short arm swing, masses of width in there, the distance between his hands and the centre of his chest, which is the best definition of width, I think, is really big there. So there's an excellent distance there, which is going to make him, give him loads of width in the downswing and the opportunity to use those long levers to full effect. And again, he's really wound up at the top here. You can see the stress there in his jumper and his trousers, where he's really winding the body up into the ground effectively. And his trademark is this cracking of the whip as he starts down, and the massive lag he generates there in the club head and arms. So those wrists are maximum setting at that point there. He's really cupping those wrists and hanging on to that angle, and at the same time unwinding his body as fast as possible. So you get the hands here approaching impact, the right hip approaching impact, and yet the club head still way back. And the beauty of Quiros is he does this without the club falling under plane. So into impact and beyond, you see just how long his arms stay here. You know, and the club shaft there, just about see it in this blurred image, is still pretty much in line with his hands. He's not flipping the club with his hands through impact. He's absolutely unleashing everything he's got down that target line, and his hips there are pretty well unwind towards the target, and around to the target, and his right hip, right knee and foot are rolling there towards the target. So all in all, that's a pretty full-blooded, powerful release, and his right side just continues releasing all the way to the target. There's no sense with him that his right side stops at all. So that's just, it's just great to watch, great swing to watch. Just uninhibited, full-blooded, unleashed power. So what I want to do now is just take a closer look at a couple of swings that we've got from last week in Dubai. Take a little bit of a closer look at Quiros and see what there is for us to learn. So I'll just pull these swings up here. Just line the swings up so we can look at them together here. So again, you get the sense here hitting an iron just how short his swing is. It's a real cracking of the whip, a blink and you miss it kind of swing. Very different actually to the long Lopey swing of Bubba Watson. Just shows that you can you can do it in different ways and still hit it a long way. So let's have a look at this from the word go. So first thing is this setup's brilliant. From down the line, you can't ask any more really than what he's achieving here with this setup. The things I like most of all here, he's nice and balanced around the middle of his feet there. There's a good amount of his body weight behind that line, and he gives a feeling of being very grounded and very balanced there at address. The other things I like are the fact that he's got this rounded look to his shoulders and his chin is nice and down, so it feels like the top of his body is looking right down on the golf ball. So he's homing in his weight on the ball into the ground, so he's going to be able to use every single part of his body to fire through the ball at impact. In some players you see the back's a little bit too straight and the chest is up and the chin is up, and when you get that, it tends to make it difficult to really fire the right side through impact. What he's doing here is wiring his whole body into the ball for a powerful approach. So it's just a great setup there, and a lot of things that we can learn. I also like the fact he's got his backside nicely out behind him, which tends to counterbalance the swing and facilitates the really good body action that he's got. Just put a few lines on here and we can just use those just to assess what Quiros is doing in his swing. Okay, so let's take him into his first move here. And the first thing you see is that club shaft goes right up the plane line. He certainly never drops under plane, Quiros, and that's one of his great strengths. When you're going to be that fast and that powerful, if that club head is getting underneath this red line, the plane line, and approaching the ball too much from the inside or underneath the plane, it's going to require a lot more hand action, a lot more timing, and it's going to make him a lot more wild. But the fact that he keeps that club head out in front of him is one of the reasons that he's able to smash it as hard as he can and keep a fair degree of control. Particularly with his iron shots, you see him hitting a lot of knockdown iron shots, and that's the result of keeping the club in front of him and having much greater control of the club head than he would have if he was underneath the plane. So in this takeaway, you can see, as we mentioned earlier, the good long levers he's got in his arms there. It keeps them nice and long. And the other thing that he does, which is quite noticeable, is this rock off the ball motion that he does. It's quite sort of specific and unique to Quiros, this. But if you look at his head, in his takeaway, he really rocks quite a bit into his right side. Now that, I think, accounts for the fact that he hasn't got a huge amount of hip turn. He's kind of locked his hips out a little bit in the backswing by making that move. So he's unable actually to turn his hips too much. That's one of the reasons why his arm swing is so short, because his hips are very restricted, and so it's difficult to get the arms to travel too far. Actually, that doesn't hurt Quiros, that helps him, because he's got this really snappy whiplash effect in the downswing with his wrist action. So just taking a look at him up at the top of the backswing here, what we can see here again, the depth in the hips is important. His right hip has moved back slightly further away from the ball than it was at address. That is really going to help him be balanced in the swing. If the hips move in towards the ball, it tends to push the spine up, and it therefore makes it very difficult to return the club on plane without some hand action. With the right hip back behind him here, it allows him to fire his legs very powerfully down the target line and downswing. The other good thing to note here is the depth in his hands. He's got his hands above his right shoulder at the top, and his left arm in a pretty shallow plane. That again makes it easy for him to get the club on plane and downswing. If you get the hands too high, you've got to do a lot of adjusting in the downswing to make the downswing powerful. And again, he's really using the ground here. If you look at the top of his swing, how much his head has dropped from its original position, you can see that he's really compressed into the ground. I think the explanation for that is the right hip has moved back and his spine angle has gone down. So it's not as if he's just dipping into the ball. He's stayed pretty constant. He hasn't moved forward. His whole body is working down into the ground. So he's just squatting down more with his legs and with his backside out behind him. All of those things mean that he's able to use the ground and hit really powerfully with his lower body in the downswing. So if we look at the start down and change of direction here, one of big things to note is how much he moves his head and his left hip towards the target as he starts down. There's a big drive to the left there. So his head's moved a good 4 inches there, and his hips as well, a good 3 or 4 inches. And that gets him very much back onto the ball. That's sort of reversing that initial rocking off the ball that we saw in the first move. So the other thing that he does well here is he gets that club very much on plane. So you see the shaft here halfway down is parallel to that original plane line. That's a real key if you want to have a simple approach to the ball. The more you can get that club on that plane line deep into the downswing, the easier it's going to be to release the club on plane. So what you've got here is the head in a really good position, slightly lower than it was to start with, and still very much on the starting line. He hasn't moved towards the ball or away from the ball in terms of sort of moving back or forwards. He's just gone down. His hips here are still way out behind him, and that allows his right foot to fire right down the target line here. You can see how his right heel's still on the ground. That's something that you really want to look for in your own swings, because that enables you to roll that right foot towards the target, rather than it firing off out towards the ball, which you see in many players. And that again means the right side can't fire to the target line. It makes the arms roll through impact. So that's something Quiros does really, really well. And in this face-on swing here, you can see how well he retains the angle there in the wrists, deep into the downswing. So coming down to impact, just before impact down the line here, you can see just how much that shaft matches up with that plane line. He gets it right back onto the starting plane. That's a great thing if you want to hit the ball straight. He's getting that club just snapping right down the plane line, and through impact here you can see it. The club exits on plane. And you can also see the face of the club there. There's no hint that that's rolled over. That club head is still very square, so he's going to hit the ball actually very straight for someone who hits it so long. So great attributes there. So again, if we look at this downswing from down the line, on plane, on plane, on plane, on plane. So that cracking of the whip is just the most simple release of the club possible. He's just firing his right side through impact with no flipping of the club head. So he's got the club approaching on line, he's got the club head square, and he's got masses of lag. Put those three things together and you're going to get a very, very powerful, very straight hit, which is what we see from Quiros. The other thing just want to highlight here is the way his leg action works through impact. If you watch his right side, it just keeps moving every frame, it keeps moving, keeps opening to the target. There's no sense that it stops at all at any point. And that just shows the full-blooded nature of his release. Everything's working towards compressing that ball down that target line. And we'll just see through impact here how his arms don't flip over, the wrists don't flip over because he's on plane, and because he's turning through the target line. He's able just to let the club release naturally with the body, with no hint of flip, and that explains how Quiros is able to hit that slight fade with such incredible power. Into through swing, tremendous balance there. So, really a great swing to watch, something to learn for everyone there. Just a really short, wide, balanced swing, just generating tremendous power, but still adhering to the key fundamentals that we look for of getting the club on plane and using that body